episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you love underground music and movies, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed shirts, vinyl, CDs, and more. Go to portlanddistro.com. Plug in the discount code MikeHill666 for 15% off at portlanddistro.com. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This episode features my friend Evan Hopper of the black metal band Quell. We had a great conversation. Originally I thought we were going to be talking about his new record, black metal, and just stuff like that. But we got really deep and talked about a lot of different stuff that I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks everyone who joined the Patreon. If you want to support Everything Went Black, please check out our Patreon. And you can subscribe for $1 or for $5. And they each have their own associated benefits and bonuses. But I'm going to be doing at least 3 bonus episodes a month, probably more. And yeah, we have the whole month of January already scheduled out, working on February. So yeah, check it out.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. Doing all right. You know, just enduring.
Surviving.
Surviving, enduring.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a rough couple of years, and you know, as you well know, none of us have been able to go out on tour or anything like that, and you know, a lot of introspection.
Yeah, I can only imagine, especially like, I mean, for you in your position, like, you know, you worked really hard to get to that point, and then like all of a sudden, like you just get all that torn away from you, and that's like, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? I mean, I know you have like a background in engineering and stuff like that, so like you have other work to do, but I don't know that you feel the same kind of fulfillment from your day job that you do out of like doing tunes and stuff like that.
Absolutely not. I mean, you know, it's like I spent most of my life trying to get away from doing that stuff, man. And you know, for a while, it's like there was a period of time where I had this. I felt like I'd escaped. You know what I mean? And now it's like, you know, back because of spending all my time working this job and, you know, doing other things. So it's kind of a drag.
Yeah. I can't even, I mean, I have no reference for it, but I can sympathize with you for sure. But yeah, can only imagine what it's like. But I mean, you are staying somewhat busy. I know that, like, you know, I know you know, you're still doing the podcast, and I know Tombs is still doing some music here and there and stuff like that. So
yeah, we played one show. We played a show back in November with Nuclear Assault, and that was very cool. I mean,
oh wow, nice.
Yeah, I mean, we recorded a single that's going to come out. It was supposed to come out in November because we were going to tour in November, but things just got too hairy, you know, over here. And you know, you see how things are getting canceled, and you know, some shows are getting canceled, and so we just like bailed on the tour, and we're going to do something in April. So
yeah, really, the inconsistencies are like they're when you, especially like when you're not like someone like Metallica or something like that. I can only imagine that has to be you know, a daunting thing, because you're like, well, what the fuck, you know, what happens if the floor falls out from underneath of us? Like, you know, what are we supposed to do? Like, you know, you can't. It must be a difficult decision. I guess what I'm saying is like to, you know, commit to a tour or to commit to too many things when you're not even sure if tomorrow is going to be closed down or it's going to happen or whatever. You know, it's very strange right now for sure.
Yeah, definitely, man. I mean, it's like, yeah, we operate on such a tight margin that even if you know, say you lose like 2 or 3 shows, and you know, you're just that potentially puts us in the red. You know what I mean?
Right. You're coming out of pocket at that point. Like,
yeah. And I would try to avoid that whenever possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Especially when you have a full band, and like, I mean, I'm sure you're really tight with your guys in the band and stuff like that. And like, you know, you don't want to like, you know, make somebody like take a couple months or a couple weeks off of work and then be like, hey, by the way, sorry, but you're gonna have to take an L because
no, people don't like to hear that.
right. It's like we only broke even this month, and then you're like, well, okay, well that's great. Well, I still have a family and house at home. Like, you know, what the fuck am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, no, totally, man. You're a little bit low, so I don't know. Like, are you kind of far away from your?
No. I have the microphone in my ear. Maybe I just need to turn up the mic or.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Is that better?
Much better. Yep.
Okay, good. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
So what was up with was the Sam Hain cover? Was that just like a little fun thing you wanted to do, or was that? I mean, that's obviously not going to go on the Tombs record. I wouldn't imagine.
I mean, it's Halloween and just trying to do stuff while we can. And that's always been like the quintessential like Halloween song for me, really, for by Sam Hain. And it's about turning into a werewolf, and that shit's cool. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, you seem to have an affinity for the werewolves too. I think if you had to pick, can I ask this question? Because I've always been curious about this. If you had to pick like vampire werewolf, what would you want?
Definitely the werewolf. Like archetype. But I like vampires. I mean, there's certain varieties of that storyline that I like better than others. And I have a couple of different books about the folkloric history of the vampire across different cultures. And
right.
There's like a really cool story in Eastern Europe. And I used to, I can't remember all the details about it, but I forgot what country. It was somewhere in Eastern Europe. It wasn't Poland. If I was prepared, I'd have like some sort of idea about this.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I kind of blindsided you with it. No worries.
Yeah. But the thing that was cool about the storyline is it ties into the Christian idea of the fall from grace of Lucifer, being cast out of heaven. And, he had this gang of fallen angels with him, and it has to do with like going into hell, and, their souls inhabiting the bodies of like recently deceased people, and they're, walking the night. It's like a cool little legend, that type of vampire I like. I think that's cool.
Is if I'm probably speaking out of turn here as well, but like, wasn't there some correlation like at a time, like in like, the early days of science and stuff like that there was some correlation between like hemophilia and vampirism that like people, I think it was, right? Like that the folklore kind of revolved around like people when they didn't actually know the diagnosis of hemophilia, like they realized that like certain people felt like some sort of, what do you say, like satiation, like from like giving human blood, but it was really just because like their own body was like lacking like the blood that they needed or whatever. Yeah,
that's like my favorite thing, man. Is going back into this like weird history and weird medical ideologies about it's evil spirits instead of just washing your hands or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Possession, and being, inhabited by evil spirits, but the reality is you just have to wash your hands with soap and you'll be okay.
Right. Like I'm too far removed from this, but like, I think it was the same thing with the Greeks, right? Like, didn't the Greeks have like the different humors or something like this? It wasn't like, not humors, sorry, but like, it was like, everything was explained like through like nature in a way. Like, you had like, it wasn't just like, they how do I say this? Yeah, like I said, I'm too far removed from it, but I believe like in those days, like when they were diagnosing like illnesses and stuff like that, it was like if you had too much, things were attributed like more to nature and like in how like certain unbalances in the body had some sort of like tie to nature instead of like, what we know now is like, oh, if you're deficient in this, you need to eat more of this or whatever. Like they explained it in a different way, but it was sort of along the lines of what we still practice to this day, but we have a better understanding, obviously, than our Greek brothers did back in the day.
Yeah,
it is interesting.
A lot of all that kind of like natural, like what people consider witchcraft, like dealing with herbs and stuff like that, and diet over trying to like cut something out of your body, and just trying to take be more of a naturalistic approach to things is like, I definitely appreciate
it's super
that.
Cool. When I was a young kid, younger kid, I'm 30, I'll be 34 in like a couple of days. But like when I was a young punk rocker, I used to pass out zines all the time, and one of them was like about the evils of alcohol. It was like this little Xerox copied zine that would go with like Staples or Kinko's or whatever, and we'd print them out and then hand them out to people who didn't want them, and but in that thing, in that little like tiny pamphlet zine, whatever you want to call it, there was like the story of like where like the term like brood witch came from in the first place, and like that brood witch is like just a derivative of like brew witch, and it really just like boils down to the fact that like women used to be like the healers in society and stuff like that, and they used to have like alcohol used to have like medicinal purposes, but then like during like the medieval reign, apparently like everyone was like living in poverty, yet everyone had like a beer ration and a ridiculous amount of beer as a ration too. Like, like an average household would have something like 2 barrels of beer like for every like week or whatever, like just a ridiculous amount of alcohol. But how like that was a tool that the ruling monarchy used for a long time to like kind of like oppress the people, and they wanted to get rid of like these women because like they were using like alcohol and like in the ancient methods to like cure people, but no one wanted, like the reigning monarchy didn't want that. They wanted everyone to like rely on the church and rely on like the kings and queens and stuff. So like they demonized like what was like quote unquote the brew witches and turned them into like this, like what you see like in Macbeth, like the 3 witches around a big cauldron, like stirring like a college. Yeah. And then that same stigma like carried on into like the colonists, like when they got to like New England, and like you had like the Puritans, like, killing all the quote unquote witches, like they're like in the Salem witch trials and all that kind of stuff. Like it's very fascinating.
If you're interested in that stuff, there's 2 books that out that I have that I recommend. One's called Witchcraft Across Ancient Europe or something like that. It's
okay.
It talks about all the basically what you were talking about about that sort of aspect of it, and the cults of Cernunnos and all that interesting stuff. And there's 6 Women of Salem, which hits the American version of witchcraft, where that ideology came to the States and how they got persecuted in Salem and that kind of thing. It's really interesting stuff. And like once again, it just goes back to the oppression of the Judeo-Christian monotheistic religion, and how it becomes this patriarchal, male-dominated ideology of control. And that like the ways, the ideologies before that, the more pagan and heathen religions have, it mostly are matriarchal because, women were running, kind of running things.
Yeah.
And men were out hunting and,
well, whatever. I mean, only out of our species, like, I mean, there's only one thing that can like actually create life, and that is a woman. Like, I mean, it's a 2-part system, at the end of the day, but like, that's something that I think most like ancient societies, like they not only were aware of, but like they kind of revered in a way too. And that's why you had like, ancient China and like Egypt and Sumerians and stuff like that, where they had like a lot of like matriarchal like deities and stuff like that. And that only sort of changed like once you got, like you said, like, more recently, like in history. I mean, recent in like the, in the 800 years ago, like sense of the word recent. But you see that like there's definitely like a way, there's definitely been like a campaign to like sort of like wipe that away, and then I don't think
but that's all fucked up though, man. It's
like all fucked up. I think it's all fucked up too.
Like I just this new embracing of like ancient religions and stuff is interesting, but people fuck it up because they're filtering it through their modern ideas, and they're putting some sort of slant on it that I think they lose the plot sometimes. Because I know a lot of people who are involved in like Wicca and like all this stuff, and Gardnerian Wicca, and I'm just like, that shit's only like 40 or 50 years old, man, and it's filtered through living in a modern society, and it's kind of I understand like trying to update things and make it applicable, but I kind of like reject all that stuff too in a way. I worked in like an occult shop when I lived in Brooklyn, and I was like, I don't know, just the I'm not saying everyone involved in that scene is like disingenuous, but there's a lot of like people that just
Oh,
really
for sure.
don't get it.
No, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I actually work in like a quote unquote like health food store here in Stockholm, and you know, a lot of the everyone I work with, I think they all have really good intentions, but sometimes, like, you know, you can listen to them talk about certain things like homeopathic medicine or you know, different idealisms on things. I mean, it's broad. It's a lot of. There's a lot to talk about, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I can tell when someone's genuine, and I can tell when someone's disingenuine, and I can kind of like listen. And I always just try to listen, you know, because I don't want to be disrespectful. But sometimes I like hear people talk about some stuff, and like, do you really think that this is actually like gonna, like, you know, help or work, or like, you know, are you just like so involved with this culture and like this life path that you took that you you're believing it to like a fault, like, you know, and maybe putting a little bit of yourself into it as well, like you said, like maybe putting a little bit more of yourself into it than like, and taking it for like face value and being more objective about it or whatever, and like just saying like, you know, I think, you know, a lot of these things have their place in society or place in medicine or place in whatever you want to call it, but like, do you really believe this? You know, like, I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very interesting.
It definitely is. And one of the problems that I saw was just like the superposition of like superimposing the human ego on everything. And that's, I mean, I'm not like a practitioner per se, but, you know, people like my ex was like deeply into her practice, you know what I mean? And she belonged to a group of people. But it wasn't like, I mean, I think like maybe out in some other non-urban part of the country, like it might be cooler because people aren't so wrapped up in, you know, the way they're being perceived and stuff like that. And I would like to experience it maybe like somewhere else than New York City, where everyone's like, you know, they got all the gear, you know, the cool amulets and the jet black, they dye their hair black and everything. And they got, you know, all this stuff, they're all put together in a certain way.
They're like part of a tribe instead of like, you know.
It's a way of like, once again, just like singling people who don't belong to your group out. And because even within themselves, there was like, I heard all about it secondhand, you know what I mean? I'm like, she'd go to her coven meetings or whatever and like come back home. And then it was just like shit talking, man. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's really the spirit of being a pagan. You know, if you're going to join a coven and be part of a group like that, you should try to have some kind of, you know, solidarity or try to help each other out. I think that was more of the spirit of like, you know, what those old religions were about, you know, those old cultures were about, and being part of a community as opposed to, you know, singling out one member because she doesn't have like the right, you know, sandals, or she bought her amulet online and not from the whatever shop in LA or whatever.
For sure. Yeah. Like, I mean, anyone who's got even half of a brain can see like that. There's something up with that, like immediately. You know, when I was younger, my dad told me a thing about like, wait, he didn't tell me a thing. He said to me one time, and it stuck with me like throughout my whole life. And that was that, like, if somebody claims to be a psychic or if somebody claims to be like an empath, like, don't trust that person, because in actuality, if that was really true, do you really think that person would really want like the world to know that? You know what I mean? Because if it was like, let's just like take a psychic, for instance, like if there was really a person in this world that like can legit like know what you're thinking, or like see the future or something along those lines, like, do you think that person would really want like the whole world to know about it? Because what kind of a nightmare would your life be if like everyone was like, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, would this be like, hey, when am I gonna die? What are the winning lottery numbers today? Like, you know, like just all that kind of stuff. You know that a person who says that they are those things is probably full of shit, you know.
Yeah.
And
no,
not to say that those things don't exist. I don't know if they exist or not. I like to enjoy like the possibility that this world is magical and then there are things that can't be explained. Absolutely, but I am very skeptical about people who claim that they are spiritual, or they are this or they are that, because I don't think that if you were really enlightened, you would actually speak in that manner. I think people who are enlightened tend to avoid the spotlight or avoid like large groups of people. I think they would, because they would see the negative in that, because it would take away from their progress in going further with spirituality or enlightenment, because if you have to like pander to like people who are lesser on the path than you are on the path, then you would just waste all your time like just trying to help other people get to where you're at, and then you still haven't like worked on your own self like during that whole process. So I don't know, but yeah, I have a healthy amount of skepticism when it comes to that sort of a thing, I have to say.
I mean, it's I think that primarily there's just chaos really, and that there within that chaos there emerges like certain patterns, and I think that humans are some humans can see patterns, and part of our the reason why we rose in the food chain like this is we have these like pattern recognition skills, and all these occult practices, and and even things like tarot and the rune system and all that have to do more with pattern recognition within all the chaos that surrounds us. It's trying to put together some sort of order to that chaos. And I think that's just after years and years and years of hearing different ideas and being exposed to different people. And, that's kind of what I walk away with a lot of like the occult with. It's just, a internal system that can help you get through a lot of the chaos in the world.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that you're not wrong in the sense that like, I think everyone has that inherent like knowledge that like there is something more to life than like what meets the eye, and everyone's just sort of like trying to explain it throughout their like their own means. And unfortunately, if the you mentioned the word like ego earlier, if like the ego gets involved, like I think that's when you start having the dissenting like problems that you have with like different religions not getting along with each other, or different idealisms like not getting along with each other. But in reality, if you were like to if everyone was to take a step back and look at it as a whole, like I don't think anyone is doing anything differently. They're all just trying to explain the same thing, because it is a weird thing, and we forget, I think we forget quite often in life that we're all trying to answer the same question, why am I here? What's the meaning of life? What happens after you die? I don't think anyone in this world gets away from asking those questions. I don't think anyone in this world has the answer to those questions. So often you'll have dissenting ideals or ideas, and you'll have opposing like concepts or opposing opinions, but does it really, at the end of the day, if you have like a question that's like so existential, like do you really think that you're actually right? I mean, if you go into like Christianity or Islam or something like that, and you look at like the concept of God being something that's unknowable, then why would you ever think that you could possibly know anything? If you already admitted from the get-go that you don't, to know God is to know nothing, or is to not know anything, or to accept the unknowable, then how could you possibly think that you know everything? It seems very strange. It seems very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I think with both of those, all three like monotheistic religions, I don't think the original prophets like Jesus Christ and Muhammad had a specific intent for the religions to turn into what we see today. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, it's almost like when you start making photocopies of stuff, and there's like copies of copies of copies, and then this distorted image of the original is what you're working with. And that's kind of, how I view. I mean, I was raised a Christian, but I don't practice Christianity or any of those religions, or any religion really. But
yeah.
But I was raised as a Roman Catholic, you know what I mean? So, but later in life, as I started exploring more about religions on a more academic level, you start seeing that. Well, some of this stuff, like especially the Bible, like whatever translation you work with, is like there's such like apocalyptic, like awesome imagery in there, and
It really is. Yeah,
Yeah, totally, man. You read like the Old Testament, it's like this is exactly, it's like a black metal record, you know. And
well, yeah, but one of my favorite not to sidetrack you, but like one of my favorite songs by At the Gates is that song Legion, you know, and like it's a whole concept of like when Jesus exorcises the demon out of I think it's a woman, and like puts it in all the pigs, and the pigs like run into the lake and like drown themselves. But like right before it says like I am Legion, we are many. Like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. Like how could you like not want to write a song about that? Like,
totally, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
You know, and even on a day-to-day basis, I mean, a lot of, you know, I mean, I've in the last several months, I've been dealing with loss and, you know, death and people passing, and you know, even like the book of Job, if you read that, it's, you know, whatever, it's part of it's in the Bible, but it's also a story about a guy who his resolve is being tested, and he's pulling through, and, you know, he's like staying the course despite all these important things being ripped from his life, you know. And I mean, there's wisdom in that, you know. It doesn't make you like, you know, some evangelistic guy out there who, you know, who's like you know, speaking in tongues and handling snakes and stuff like that. I mean, right. There's like stuff to gain from everything, and I try to stay open with all that stuff. And, you know, I think it's cool to read Aleister Crowley and then also read about, you know, the book of Job and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, and when I was more when I pursued this sort of thing more was when I was younger. You know, I had a very interesting upbringing. I haven't really talked about this much, like on these. Well, I haven't really done these many podcasts, but I haven't really talked about this too open, like in the public kind of stuff. But like with my upbringing, like my parents were like Taoists, and they were hippies, you know. So they grew up with like Taoism and like Carlos Castaneda's books, like talking about like the Don Juan, Don Miguel and Don Miguel, like this like dreamer warrior sort of path, and like it was strange to like grow up with that. And then my dad's parents had died before I was ever born, but my mom's parents were alive, and my mom's parents are this Christian sect that are called like the 2x2s. And I don't think many people know what the 2x2s are, but they're like salt of the earth kind of people. And they would have like every Sunday and Wednesday at their place, they would have these things called meeting. Meeting is more or less like just like a congregation, but it was supposed to be like in the house, and like and they would have all their old friends come over. And if I was ever staying there, like growing up, like if I was at my grandparents' house, you know, you have to dress up nice. And my job was like to hold the door for like all these old fucks that like were coming into the house. And then they'd sit around in like my grandparents' living room, and they would read from the Bible, sing psalms, and they would talk about like different passages in the Bible that like, you know, affected them that week, because they were constantly reading the Bible. But my grandparents were very punk rock in the sense that they hated the church. They thought that the church was an abomination, even though that they were very devout Christians and stuff like that. And so I had like kind of like a dual upbringing when it came to religion. You know, I had on one side with my parents, I had this very esoteric like sort of upbringing when it came to like Taoism and I don't even know what you would call like the it's called like the Nagual like upbringing. It's like a Native American thing, which my dad was half Native American, so like he identified with that. Yeah. So I got that half of the upbringing, like where dreams were supposed to be interpreted, and like, you know, life is a dream, but like you're here on this earth like to serve like sort of like a it's maybe too much to bring up right now, but you know, it definitely showed me one thing. And one of the things that it showed me was like what we just were talking about, was that like no one really has any fucking answers about anything. It's just like different people's like interpreting like different things. I did like the stuff that I was brought up with my parents, because like I still do have like a lot of dreams that are like quote unquote like lucid dreams, and things you can't really explain away with like 40ism or anything like that. That to this day, like I still have difficulty like interpreting or like really expressing to other people, because I don't really know many people that have that same kind of thing happen to them on a daily basis or what, a yearly basis or whatever. But I also don't feel like the need to talk about it either, because it sort of like ostracizes myself, like to bring up that sort of a stuff. And as I've gotten older, I've spoken less and less about it. And so like I just sort of like interpret it like my own way, however I can. But yeah, I mean, it's we're all just kind of in this shit together, just trying to figure out whatever the fuck we're trying to figure out. Like, I don't know.
That's an intriguing idea, which that's crossed my mind too. That a lot of our life, that our experiences and reality are phantoms or dreams, or just sort of these reductions of like a more energetic, reality. You know what I mean? Like that's a lot. It's almost like if you read H.P. Lovecraft, his idea of like the elder gods and Azathoth, and they dream reality. You know what I mean? And
yeah, like the whole Silver Key like saga and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
really
I think a lot of people come to that
sort of
realization, or that concept is something that people, sometimes is intriguing to a lot of people because of like, just the human mind and the way it works, and like this, you look at the reality in the material world, and it's like, this can't be everything there is in the universe, because this kind of sucks, really, if you think about it,
Well, I do think about, in Taoism, they talk about qi a lot, or ki, or however you want to pronounce it, and they talk about like children in the fact that when children are born, they have this thing called pre-birth qi, and you can kind of see some of this being real, and in the sense that like if you spend any time with like children, like they kind of always seem like they're drunk or high all the time, like even though they're not, like, but they're like naturally like they're just joyful in life. And sometimes kids like see things, and sometimes like they just have like a world that exists around them. And if you it's difficult for me to do it too, but if you really think back, like you can probably remember sometimes when you were a kid, like maybe you had an imaginary friend, or like maybe you were like, like just you were able to kind of manipulate your world, or maybe not manipulate is the right word, but like your world was different when you were a child than it is now. And a lot of that, I think, is the result of people's elders like explaining away all of these experiences that you're having in a practical, scientific way that sort of steals that magic away. And then as you get older and older, you start just explaining away things like, oh, if you're a parent and your kids are like having a nightmare, you're like, oh, you're just having a nightmare. There's no monsters underneath your bed, or there's no such thing as imaginary friends, but perhaps those things really are a thing. And just because we get older, we allow the ego to take over more, our internal dialogue takes over more, and then we start believing our own bullshit, and then we start explaining things through the eyes of a person that has lost all of that. And inevitably you get like all of these, religions where they're just people trying to explain things through their eyes, like you said earlier, like when you're just when people are like, they're taking over like this thing and making it about humans. And you can see that with many religions. There's so many religions that like, it's okay to beat your wife, or it's okay to be an adulterer, or like, like this shit like that. It's like, really, is that really part of spirituality? Like, I don't know if that is, like, and over time I became less and less like interested in anything adults have to say, because I just think that we're all missing the point. If it's at the beginning of life and at the end of life, you see like the human being is like the most harmonious. Like, elderly people don't worry about nothing, and neither do children. But in the middle of life somewhere, like everything's so goddamn important, and why is that? It's because children don't know the consequence of death, and old people don't care about dying, but somewhere in the middle, everyone's like so consumed with how much money am I going to get? How many women am I going to get? Like, how much power am I going to get? All these things, and it's not really anything that fulfills you at all,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that's like conditioning from society,
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it's all like there's so much like varying degrees. I mean, it's like you and I were both involved in like creative endeavors and like to think of things in a bigger picture. but then you run across people who are so deeply embedded in whatever dogmatic, lifestyle that they've been, that they embrace, you know what I mean? Like, and then they have no,
it could be anything. It could be anything, I mean,
and they have like, and you're like, are we even the same, race, the same type of animal? Because you are so rigid and stuck in your little trip that you're in, and you can't see beyond it.
I worked a warehouse job one time.
Me too. I worked warehouse jobs.
Yeah, I had a lot of those. But I met a guy one time, legit, never listened to music, never. And I just was, it was probably one of the most flabbergasting things. The guy could have told me that he's like the second coming of Christ. It wouldn't have been as shocking as the fact that he told me like he doesn't listen to music. And I'm like, you never listen to me? He like legit only listened to like talk radio. And that was the only thing he ever listened to in his car. And it was just the strangest thing to me. It's like, because I mean, as an artist, as a musician, like, my life would be like completely void if I didn't have like music in it, like, and it was such a strange thing to hear from another person. And, it kind of like took me out of myself for a minute, because that was like a moment. I was young. I can't remember. I think maybe I was 19 or something. And I heard this from a person for the first time. And like the concept of like that there's other people in this world that don't share like that don't feel the same way about art or I don't know, something like that. It was such a strange concept to me. And I was like, oh, right. Like it was one of those early moments in life when you realize like not everyone's like you. You're different, or people are different, and that was like one of the first times that I was actually like presented like that sort of a thing. It was strange. It still sticks with me like weird today. Like I don't know how anybody that could even like exist in this world and not listen to music, but not that he didn't hear music, but he just didn't listen to it. He didn't have a band he liked.
He didn't respond to it. And that's the real thing, is like, if you think about it, creativity and expression and, music and dancing and art and stuff like that has always been part of human society. I mean, you go back and you look at ancient civilizations and, ancient man and, when the things you'd find is like cave paintings, you know what I mean? You'd find this attempt of men, humans, the human race, trying to express themselves and create things. And the fact that we live in a society where that's like completely been like hamstringed, and you're looked down upon if you're creative or like you have some sort of artistic bent, and I ever since I moved out here to New Jersey, it's like I feel it more than ever. You know what I mean? Being different because of, you see the tons of these American flags and, and the flag with the little blue stripe on it, and that kind of thing. And dudes with like,
you're in like a suburbia area too now, aren't you?
Yeah, totally. And I didn't really see I didn't see too much of that when I lived in Brooklyn, because like, it's a pretty liberal place, but like out here, there's like this rigid, and the town I live in is pretty liberal though. But when I got to go other places, I have to go to work. I have to go to the gym and stuff like that. And I just see these fucking people, man. And it's like that sort of like I definitely feel like the other, you know what I mean? And and that's made me I reevaluated my forgiveness for certain people. And now I'm on this mindset of destruction of anything that sort of is an interloper within my world. You know what I mean? So if like some dude with an American flag rolls up on me, he's going to get fucked up. That's like kind of like my standpoint on everything.
Right. And that in itself is a crazy thing too, because like, I mean, I know you come from like this similar punk rock world that I came from too. And like, we were very inclusive back in those days. And like, but now we're like, a lot of people I know who like were very inclusive, people are now like just so rigid. Even like some of them become like conservative and stuff like that. Like, I don't even want to say conservative, because that I think that's far right or far left. We'll just use those terms. I know a lot of punk rock people who are far right now, and I'm like, what? Like we were brought up on like anti-government music, and we were sitting around like talking about like fuck the government, and like now you're like all for it or whatever, you know, and vice versa. It's all over the goddamn place, and but it's so strange to me, you know. I mean, I grew up in Northern Virginia, and I was how do I explain this to you? When you were in Tombs, did you ever play at Jack's nightclub? Or not?
Yeah, that's like in Fredericksburg, right? Or Blacksburg or something like that. Yeah,
it's called Spring Spring. God damn it! I'm gonna fuck it. Everyone's gonna hate me right now. Springville, Spring something. It's Fredericksburg. And you know, that was like the closest club that we had, like where I grew up. But like anything outside of that was like just fucking rural country. You know, like you had Jack's nightclub, and then like another 30 minutes you were like in like Alexandria or like in DC. You know, you had 930 and what was it, Cat and like yeah and stuff like that. You know, but anything outside of that was just like might as well just been like Deliverance. You know, and when I'm growing up, like, you know, being a skater and a guy who was in the punk rock music, like, you know, I was running from rednecks like every day, like, you know, after school or something like that, you know, called a freak. And you know, I felt very outside at a very young age, but as I got older, I became more sympathetic towards that sort of like mentality, you know, like I kind of went the opposite way of it, like to the point now, like I think maybe I'm too lenient sometimes on people, because like I try to be like accepting of all things, because I know what it feels like to be outside and then, you know, trying to like just get through life or whatever. But I mean, at the same time, like, you know, I still have like that sour taste in my mouth, like, when you're just like trying to get home from school and there's a pickup truck full of like 6 dudes like chasing you down, calling you faggot and calling you freak and like, you know, wanting to kick your ass, like, you know, and you're like, I'm not just a fucking 14 years old, man. Like, what the hell did I do to you? Like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I like
the dead Kennedys, and like I get in trouble because I like the dead Kennedys. Like, I fucking like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, it's a weird irony that's going on now, especially, you know, it's people are, you know, the right wing is like, well, you know, the liberals are all, you know, they're embracing the pharmaceutical industry and this and that, and they're trying to do this and that. But you know what, the Republicans, the right, let's remember that those motherfuckers are all about the oil industry, you know. So each side has their corporation that they are fucking champions of. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I really don't see too much difference in either one of them.
No.
When you get to the top, you know, when it comes to people, I just think people are just trying, like, you know, back to like the talk earlier about witchcraft and stuff like that. Like, people are just trying to fit in. They're just trying to find like where the fuck they fucking feel like they belong. And I get that. And I don't really hold any judgment, but those people at the top, like, they're just lying if they by saying that they're, you know, left or right, because they're not. They're all the same. You know, I mean, you go back to Donald Trump endorsing Hillary like back in the 90s, like, you know,
but he was a Democrat.
Like,
he was a Democrat in the 90s.
But see, that's the thing. It's like I remember this. You know, I used to have a normal TV, and I used to, like, you know, when I was growing up, like, you know, we'd see this kind of stuff on TV, and then like I just think that we have a better understanding of this kind of thing. Like, when I knew this guy was a I don't know what you'd call it, like a fence sitter, you know, like he's never, you know, and all of them, every single one of them. Yeah, I remember Hillary Clinton. I remember like how many people were so offended when like she didn't endorse like gay marriage, you know, and then you know, it's just all of them. They're just all hypocritical assholes. They're only in it for themselves, and people need to remember that it's not left and right is one's better than the other. Like, until you get like that corruption out of there, like it's always going to be the same kind of issues, because those people are in it for themselves. They're in it for their pocketbooks, and they don't care about you and me. Donald Trump would never have gone into Front Royal, Virginia, and pissed on somebody who supported him if he was on fire. And neither would Hillary Clinton either. You know, like none. You know, these people are just like they're just assholes. They're just fucking assholes. You know,
Yes.
I hate them. I hate them. I do hate them all. Like
Yeah,
really
I hate the government. I always have. The thing that no one talks about regarding Donald Trump though is like back, you know, no one mentions that he used to be a Democrat at all in this country. Mm-hmm. And the only thing he really, it's apparent to me, and this is anecdotal evidence. I don't, you know, there's nothing published about regarding this, but
yeah, sure.
From where I can see, the guy just wants to win. Okay, so how is he going to win? All right, Democrats, you know, people on the left, they think he's just a piece of shit. They don't take him seriously, right? So, okay, I'm going to be a Republican. Okay, so what does that mean? That means I do not, if I can win the electoral votes in these fucking shithole states that have nothing going on and a bunch of white people are like addicted to opioids, you know, and stuff like that. You know, these like right-wing, far-right fucking lunatics. If I can appeal to them, I can win the electoral votes and I don't have to win the popular vote. Okay, because that's how you determine who the president is with the electoral college, which by definition, the reason why they have the electoral college is to slant things towards the ruling class, towards like what was perceived as being, you know, the white governing Anglo vibe in this, the whole trip of the Anglo people keeping control in this country. You know what I mean? So he just worked the whole system. What's my easiest path to victory?
Right.
You know, appeal to these like fucking rednecks out there who, you know, believe in God and, you know, or these evangelistic Christians and, you know, guns, all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? You know, integration.
It's
immigration
wrestling,
and all that.
It's wrestling. You know, it's professional wrestling. You know,
he's like Ric Flair. You know,
exactly. Well, you know, you have workers, right? In wrestling, you have like the workers, and then you have the marks. You know, and everyone's a mark for the workers, right? But like, you know, sometimes a wrestler is like a heel, and then sometimes he's a baby face, and you know, but people fall for it, you know. And Donald Trump is like best friends with Vince McMahon. So if you don't think for like 1 second that he doesn't like understand like, you know, how to work people, like you're out of your mind. He's a worker. Yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, there's a lot of good people in this world or in this in our country that fall prey to that sort of a thing. But it's the same reason why Joel, what's his name, Joel Osteen, or like you know, all those TV evangelists, you know, like Jimmy, what was Jimmy's name? Jimmy, the guy who could cry on like command. Jimmy, I can't think of his fucking name.
The name's not coming to me either.
It was him and his wife. Remember him and his wife? Like they would sit there and they would just no.
Baker, Jim Baker.
Baker, Jim Baker. Yeah, it's the same reason why like people like my grandmother's age and probably your grandparents' age too, like just dumped money on a telephone to those kind of people, right? Because they're marks, you know, because they were just pandering and saying like the right thing to fucking say, you know. They're evil motherfuckers too. Like I hate those bastards also. Like.
I want to revise a statement I made because I didn't want to offend anyone out there who lives in one of these states who's a good guy, you know, good person rather.
Of course, no. We know. I mean, I'm from Virginia. We know the difference.
Right. I mean, it's just a redneck. You know, there's fine people. You know, there's fine people on both sides.
Of course, of course.
No, but I just have always had a hard time in the Southeast and the Midwest with people.
Yeah.
Like. You know, and I don't want to alienate everyone out there who lives in those states because, like I said, there are tons of people in those states that are cool and have, you know, they have good hearts and all that kind of stuff. But the first time I ever traveled across the country on tour in the 90s, my eyes were open to just the fucking total ignorance of people out in certain parts of the country, man. And I'm just like, and it stuck with me my whole life. Like the Southeast is like a fucking hell, man. To me,
it's strange.
To me, it is.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
And like Montana, I remember we were the first time I'd ever crossed the country in a van, you know, the 90s. Okay. I'm like, not that far out looking. It's not like I had like purple hair and like, mad face piercings and shit like that. I had like jeans on and a chain wallet and like a fucking jacket, basically. My hair I didn't even have I had like longer hair too back then too. And we stopped in Butte, Montana. And my whole like perception of things was like, oh, this is beautiful out here, man. It's like, look at these trees and mountains, like the sky is gigantic and it's this green, beautiful place. I'm like, okay, we need to get fuel. Pull into a gas station. I go out and pump the gas. This pickup truck, I've literally been in Butte, Montana for about 3 minutes. This fucking pickup truck drives by and the guy calls me a faggot, right? Which is fine. Hey, dude, I have no problem at all. If you're saying that you think I'm gay, then I'm not offended by that at all. I mean, I think it's, that's totally cool, man. Like, but you're trying to provoke me by calling me that name and you're using that term as a way to denigrate me or something, then you're a fucking asshole, basically. But of course they drove right by and, nothing happened. We got in the van, we drove away and I was like, you know what, man, fuck all this shit. And it's just like, how do you not feel that way if that's the experience? That's a typical experience of me driving through certain parts of the country, and I've carried that with my whole life, man. And I'm sorry if that's just my small-mindedness, but I just don't like being around that shit, No,
I don't think I mean, maybe it is small-mindedness, but I mean, that's your experience. And I don't think it's invalid at all. I mean, I've also, I lived in Virginia until I was 19. And then my best friend who I started my first band with ever, he had moved to California and he joined up with a band out in California while I was still in Virginia. And the band that I was in at the time, this band Kvlt, had just broken up, and serendipity, he hit me up one day and was like, hey, we have this tour planned on the West Coast. Do you want to come out? Because we just lost a guitar player. And I'm like fucking 19. I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do that. Like, that sounds awesome, So I packed up my Honda Accord and like drove across the country, like myself, first time, like young kid, just by myself, like everything in tow as well, like, just packed full car, like driving across the country. And I took the 40 across, so like you go through like Tennessee, like to Oklahoma and stuff, And it was around like Oklahoma, Texas, things got a little bit weird, and then they slowly got better, like as you got into like New Mexico, Arizona, and then into California. But yeah, I mean, it's I live in Sweden now, and I've been here for like 2.5 years now. And one of the most common things that I get out of having conversations with people here that talk about their perceptions of like America is they think America is very small, and it's not.
Yeah, totally.
And you know that it's not small either, and so it's a hard thing for most people to grasp. Maybe even Americans, it's hard for Americans even to grasp, maybe, like how fucking large like a state like Oklahoma is. Like you can drive for 10 hours through Oklahoma and not get to the end of it. And
just even Texas too, man. That's like
just the top of Texas. Like if you go through like Amarillo, like that little like fucking rectangle at the top, takes like, if you're driving nonstop, takes like 8-9 hours to go to that little top bit. That's not even the whole like width of the state. Like, there's a lot of people living out there with a lot of different mindsets, a lot of different ideals, and some of those places still don't even have fucking like the same like. When I lived in Northern Virginia, there was towns in West Virginia that didn't have internet, and this was like in my early adult years, like like 17, 18, like legit no cell phone towers, no internet, like. You think you're walking into like a Wild West town, like it just didn't even like, and of course those kind of people are going to have like really antiquated like ideals as well, because they just haven't had that exposure. I think nowadays maybe things are a little bit better, but I would be remiss to say that like I believe that the entire country of the United States is fully, embraced the change of social like evolution. I think that would be an arrogant statement to make. There's probably still a lot of places out there that still hate gay people, hate black people, just because they're afraid of them or whatever it might be, whatever their reasoning is behind it. But I'm absolutely sure that stuff still exists, because I've experienced it myself too. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, I used to, like, probably similar to you, I used to be a little bit more tried to be understanding of people's views, and like, try to like say, okay, well, these aren't the most worldly people, but I also don't want to, I don't want to be like condescending either. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like, oh, well, these like savages out here, of course they don't understand things, or, but like,
right.
Over the last several years, I've just can't help but like, just be like, fuck it. I can't help you guys. You're basically, a part of a different thing that's threatening to me.
And you shouldn't either, because like I mentioned earlier, like way earlier, your progression is your progression. And, if you're able to help people through your influence, like, that's a great thing, but it shouldn't be I don't think, it's my opinion, but I don't think that it should be any of our prerogative to take on like fixing the world.
Oh no, I'm totally not saying that, but like,
no. But I mean, like you said you should
high ground. Yeah. Trying to be like understanding instead of just, rejecting everyone. Like, that's, for most of my life, I was trying to live that way. I would be wary of people from the more rural parts of the country because of just the experiences I've had. But then, you get a little bit older and you're like, okay, well, I've worked in different environments. I've been to these places professionally. And it's like, there is like, you can find some common ground, but now it's like, there's this very tribal thing going on in the United States. And it's like, I'm not a lefty either. I mean, we talk about, fiscal conservatism. Okay. Which there are certain things about being conservative on a financial level I can understand. Like, I don't believe that we should live in a welfare state or anything like that. But ultimately, it comes down to the right. I don't want to live in a country where women don't have the right to go and get an abortion. I don't want to live in a country like that. I don't want to live in a country where God is like, and religion is like, it's like such a, an issue, because that is primarily who a lot of the right wing cater to, these like fucking Christian fundamentalists, and that's really not the kind of world I want to live in. I want to live in a world that has the same kind of thing.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, wholeheartedly. I don't know how you can live in this world, especially if you are in the slightest compassionate towards family or friends, and not be somebody who exists in a gray area. Because I think life is like a gray area. And I know that's kind of like a tried trope to say, but I do honestly like believe that, there, you can't be an extremist left or right, because that's not really how things work in life, and yeah. you and I know that, like, you brought up the abortion thing. You and I know that if we were to sit down with somebody who is anti-abortion, we could easily present them a situation that they would come around to, where they would be okay with the concept of abortion, right? And vice versa, probably too.
I don't know about that, man. I think there are some motherfuckers out there who they believe the Bible tells them that they can't have abortions, even though there's nothing in the Bible about that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, so that then we would have to maybe do a little bit of research, but we could. I feel like eventually you could get somebody who is very rigid in some point of view to like see something from another point of view. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I choose to live my life in that gray, because I know first off, I know that I'm not very, like, I'm well read and I had a decent education like growing up, but like I'm not that smart, like I'm not an intellect or anything like that, and I don't think that I have all the answers. And how I've always felt, even to this day, like how I still like try to live my life, is that I think the human experience is having literally that, like having a human experience, and that the reason why it's important to have friends and be open-minded is because you can't, in our small, short lifetime, you can't really like experience everything. But through having friends, you can experience more than you would be able to like ever experience like in your own life. And if other people do like some work, you know, whatever that work might be, you know, you have the benefit of like being able to talk to them and learn something for yourself that maybe, you know, you haven't had enough experience in. And as soon as we close ourselves off to like that sort of like interaction with other people, I feel that's really when you might as well just hang it up. You know, like what's the point in living anymore if you're not willing to like to at least listen and maybe, you know, change your mindset about stuff, you know, or have a, you know, having a conversation doesn't mean that you have to disagree with somebody. You can disagree with somebody, but it doesn't mean that you know, that you're right or that you're wrong. You know, none of us are really right or wrong, because none of us, at the end of the day, like we were, again, like a callback as well, is like, you know, none of us know what the fuck we're doing here. We don't know, you know, and we don't know what happens after you go. But I do know one thing, and that is that like, I feel better when everyone around me is like happy, and I feel like crap when everyone around me feels like crap. And
for sure.
if I just act on those basic impulses, I can say that it's better when people feel good, and it's bad when people feel bad, you know. And if everyone did that, you know, I don't know, maybe, you know, that's the hippie upbringing in me coming out right now.
Yeah, I try really hard, you know, and sometimes I'm successful, but there are definitely extremes in our society, which on both sides of the fence, that I just want to throw a net over all of them and bury them in a pit somewhere, you know?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And that's just kind of how I feel. Maybe incinerate them first and then bury the ashes somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, but like, you know, you're a musician and you're a passionate guy, and you have the ability to articulate your passions, and this makes you feel that way. Your anger is palatable, like, whereas like in other people, maybe it's not, you know, they don't understand why they feel a certain way. Not saying you do understand the way you feel, but you know it's there. And because you have compassion in your heart, and because you are articulate, you know, you're more vocal than somebody else. And that's not right or wrong. It's just the way that it is, you know? And it's like a blessing and a curse, you know, I think, because like I value, you know, I value listening to you on your podcast and sharing your ideals with us. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, I don't know if you get that kind of feedback or not, but like it's appreciative. Like, you know, I'm appreciative of it, because it's nice to listen to other people talk, you know. And like, I don't know what's right or wrong, but like I know that if somebody who's my friend or isn't my friend like feels strongly about something, I want to listen to them and get to, you know, get to whatever it is that they want to get out, you know, so that maybe they feel better, or maybe I learn something, or whatever, you know, whatever it might be, you know.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. I really do, you know, and it's cool to know that, you know, there's some impact with people, you know, and, you know, I just, you know, it's a forum, man, just people expressing ideas and, you know, getting things out of it. You know, I've gotten some pretty cool feedback from people, you know, on both fronts, on music and the podcast, you know, and it feels really good to get that, you know. Dude,
What was
honestly,
nice about the sorry, go ahead.
For quite a while, I thought you were English. I didn't realize you were from the States originally, you know that?
Yeah.
You have like kind of a Brit name, you know. Evan Hopper is that could be a British guy's name. Yeah.
It's Welsh. Yeah, it's actually Welsh.
Okay.
Yeah, but no. Born in the Appalachian Mountains. Grew up in a small town. Although I did have some, you know, I had some music around me. Like we had. You might know one of the bands actually. When a band called Reflux. Do you remember Reflux?
I've heard the name before, actually. From
like the 90s.
Yeah, the late 90s.
Yeah. Reflux is now. You probably know the people from that band. Ash Alvinson, who's like Sumerian Records now, and then Tosin Abasi, who's the Animals Leaders. They were a band in our area, quote unquote area, like in the county. And then we had some other like bands in there, but it was a small little town, but no, I'm a East Coast boy for sure, through and through.
Then you lived out in California for a while too, right?
Yeah, like I said, I moved out there. I lived there for 10 years in the San Luis Obispo area. So it's like Central Coast. I'll name drop again. I don't usually do it, but I was lucky enough to like live in the same area where like Unique Leader Records was. So like I got to meet Eric, who ran Unique Leader and was also the frontman for Deeds of Flesh, and Mike Hamilton, who's the drummer for that, and some other guys, Matt Harvey from Exhumed, like some really cool people. Yeah. And,
okay. You were in you were in Deeds of Flesh?
No. I met the guys.
Oh, okay. I thought you said you were. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool, man. That's awesome.
No. But I know like Jacoby and like all. And
okay, all right. Yeah, that band's sick.
Oh yeah. Really nice, like down to earth kind of guys too. And that area of California was really cool because it was. I mean, when I say laid back, I mean all of California is kind of laid back, but it's by the ocean and in this place called like near this place called Morro Bay, which is the really kind of an idyllic, like, beach town and stuff like that. And I lived there for around 10 years, and that was really cool. That was really nice.
There's a big power plant in San Luis Obispo, I believe, too, right?
It's just south. Yeah, it's in Arroyo Grande. Yeah, it's called Diablo Canyon. Yeah.
Yeah, there's I've been to the power plant before.
Nuclear power plant. Oh, from your engineering?
Yeah. The company I used to work for was I don't know if they designed and built it, but they do a lot of like maintenance there and projects and things like that.
Can you answer a question? I've always wondered
why
did they build that? why did they build that power plant on the San Andreas fault line? Because I still can't figure that one out.
Well, structural and geotech is not my specialty, so I can't answer that question.
Well, neither is it my specialty, but like I can tell you probably don't want to build a nuclear power plant.
I know, man.
Fucking fault line.
Yeah, no, I was just trying to like find a way out of that question because I think it's a fucking silly idea. Yeah,
it's quite strange. Yeah.
Also, I think Chuck Liddell is from the famous MMA fighter is also from St. Louis.
Yeah, I used to train at his gym. There's a couple of gyms called the Pit, and I trained at his gym for a little while back when I cared a little bit more about my physique. I still work out, but I used to go to gyms.
That's awesome.
I don't do it so much anymore. Yeah. I've met Chuck a couple times too. He's also a really nice guy. I mean, I never met him long enough to like really like be friends with him or anything like that. But he'd come through once in a while just to kind of check up on his different gyms because I think he has a couple in LA, and then he had two in like the San Luis Obispo like area and stuff like that. And yeah. Nice enough guy. Another one of those MMA fighters too is Josh Barnett. I don't know if you.
Oh, yeah, I know Josh. Him or not. I know him. He's been on the podcast before. Yeah, Josh.
Has
awesome. He? Yeah.
Yeah, he's super sweet. I met him at a so a friend of mine. You might actually know him too. I don't know if you know Dylan Werdeman. I don't know if you know him or not. If you didn't know him, if you don't know him by name, you probably don't know him. But he does some stuff with. He's not a musician, but he runs around with the Exhumed Boys. But he also runs around with the.
Oh yeah, yes, I do know. I didn't know his last name, but yeah, I know him. Yep, he was.
Dylan.
Yeah, I know Dylan. He was with Ringworm when we toured with those guys a couple of years ago.
Okay. Yeah,
he's great. I love Dylan.
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I love that guy to death. He's so nice. And he was doing merch for Goat Whore on that Satyricon. The last quote unquote like Satyricon show. I don't know if it'll be their last or not, but they were doing that last full tour, and I was down in LA, and just because I knew Dylan, I was able to like hang out with the Goat Whore guys for a little bit, and Josh was there, and I ended up talking with Josh for like I don't know, maybe 30 minutes or something like that, but I had a lot of fun with all the guys, but I had a lot of fun with Josh. He was a really nice dude, like he's just very, very humble for being as large of a man as he is. Like,
well, yeah, he has a totally different mind than a guy who would be like a heavyweight UFC champion. You know what I mean? Like he has like that side, obviously like the martial arts side, like catch wrestling.
Yeah, I can crush your skull between my hands.
Hanging out with him though, it's literally like you're hanging out with just some regular dude that that loves music and is into comics and, you know, fucking Conan and shit like that. So it's,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like, it's awesome because, yeah, I fuck around and I go to different gyms and I train and all that. And a lot of those guys are very, you know, some of those guys are pretty one-sided, you know what I mean? They're really into just their thing. And then they don't really, you can't have conversations with them about like, you know, Robert E. Howard and like death metal and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Life in general, right? Yeah.
But Josh is like, he's like a fucking serious bro, man. You know what I mean? Like that's like fucking hanging out with him is like just, it's so fucking sick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's cool. I hope I get a chance to meet him again because he was such a sweetheart and yeah, just, you know, I'm a big I don't know the word, not proponent. That's not the right word, but like I really respect people who are like just like genuine, you know, like at the end of the day, you know, and I don't mean to like maybe toot my horn too much, but I feel like I have a pretty good like radar for that kind of a thing. I can tell like within a few minutes of talking to somebody if this is like somebody I would like to continue a friendship with, or I just like need to get away from this person as fast as possible. And I had a really good vibe with him. He was just kind, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, hell yeah. So what brought you to Sweden?
Relationship.
Okay, that I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had always kind of wanted to. I'd always kind of wanted to move here. Well, at least to Europe. But yeah, I ended up meeting somebody, and me and her. She's Swedish, so after doing like when I was 28, I think it was my first time coming to Europe, and I had some friends out here in Europe that I'd met through music and what have you. So I did like a little European like tour, if you will, like just backpacking to a couple of different countries and stuff like that. And then I ended up here in Sweden, and it was cool, you know. And like I just kind of but I wanted like a change of pace. So I decided to go through the whole process of getting a visa to live out here, and yeah, I just, it was always something I always wanted to do, you know. And when you come from a small town, you know, most people that come from like where I'm from, and no disrespect to them, but like a lot of them, like, you know, don't really move too far from like where they grew up, and don't really have any aspirations outside of like having a family and having a career. All very valid, all very admirable things, but like I just didn't really ever have that, you know. I just kind of, I don't know, I feel, yeah, if you want to get like biblical terms, I feel like the prodigal son sometimes. Like I just needed to like get out and like experience life on my own terms and do different things. And yeah, so at the moment it has brought me to Sweden. And as long as if I'm lucky enough to continue on living this life, I'll probably end up somewhere else one day too. You know, maybe back in the States again, or well, what have you. But like it's been nice, you know. It's been cool. I've been fortunate to have this experience, and I don't take it. Sometimes I take it for granted, but for the most part, I don't try to take it too much for granted because I realize how nice it is to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, I like Scandinavia. It's really, really beautiful up there, and it's funny, similar to the way Europeans see Texas. I think that Americans see Scandinavia as being a way smaller place than it actually is.
They do, and a lot of Americans think for some reason that I live in Switzerland, even though I clearly live in Sweden. But for whatever reasons, like Americans can't, like, they don't. I don't know why they know Switzerland. I guess maybe Swiss Army knives or something. Maybe that's why they bring it up. I don't know.
Yeah, because I got a feeling for how big and far away some of these countries were from each other. When you know, obviously from touring, like there's that ferry that goes to Helsinki. And I remember seeing that we were playing, you know, in Stockholm or something like that, somewhere in Sweden, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, cool. We're playing in Denmark," and it's like, "Oh, what's that? Like a 3-hour drive, you know?"
Right.
Like, 2 hours, you know. And then I realized we had to get on a boat and travel like overnight to get to fucking you know, to Denmark. I'm not Denmark. To Helsinki,
Sweden.
Finland. Yeah, Finland. Yeah, Finland. We were playing Sweden, and then we're playing Finland. Okay. Finland's awesome. It's like being in another, that's like being in like a Lord of the Rings, like world. Like Finns have like a very distinctive look, man, too, which it's fucking so cool. And I was like, oh yeah, what's that? Like a 4-hour drive. And then no, of course you have to get on a boat, 16 hours or something. And it was definitely a learning experience. And I'm glad I had, I understand that that's not a 4-hour drive to get to Finland. And Norway is even further out, further north,
Oh yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. But it's cool, it's neat, I mean, you and I are both blessed in a way, like to be able to see that and experience that, because it is really cool and and humbling in a way. It's just nice to like meet other people from other countries, especially like with different culture backgrounds, and like, oh, you're not actually that different from me at all. Oh, you're just the same as me, just you just speak a different language, and you call Donald Duck Kalienka instead of Donald Duck, just like weird stuff like that. Like,
I would
cool,
really
man.
like to spend more time in some of these countries, in some of these cities, because when you're on tour, you're only there for a few hours, and then you have to travel, and
you can't really take it in.
And after a while, it's almost like you just see the inside of the venue and like a restaurant like that's nearby, and it's then the van, and then you're on the highway or you're on a boat or something like that. So it's it'd be nice to really go to these places sometimes and just hang out for a couple of days, and then understand more about like what the city's like and what the people are like and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine, like, as a touring artist, I mean, you're not only like what you said, but you're also drained as fuck. Like, so like you're not like really wanting to go on a tourist trip of Prague, like right after like you got into Prague at like 6:00 in the morning and then play a gig at 10. Like, it's not going to go very well for you, I don't think. But
yeah, it's always hard with the time changes and everything, because I don't really ever, like, I don't stay in like Eastern Standard Time, but I also don't fully get into whatever the time zone I'm in either, so I'm always like staying up till like 5 in the morning, or and just sleep, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm never fully in sync with the rest of the society when I'm in Europe.
Yeah, I get it. Like, I don't know if this rule is real, but I think it might have some truth behind it. But have you ever heard like whatever the time difference is from where you are, that's how many days it takes for you to like get acclimated?
Oh, I did.
So like,
I never heard that.
So if you're 6 hours away, like, then it's going to take you 6 days to get like acclimated. If you're 9 hours away, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if that's true or not, but there does seem to be like a little bit of merit to that, because I have experienced jet lag quite a lot myself. Like, sometimes, like you can kind of like fake it when you get off the plane, like, you can manage for like a day or two, but then there's like just that inevitable crash that comes along, and you're just fucked for a couple days, and then you feel fine again, and then you're normal, and then you have to go home, and then everything's all fucked again.
It starts all over again. Exactly. Trying to sync up with everything else.
Right.
Yeah. So you started Quell when you were in the States, though, right?
I did. Yeah. Quell was just like a little side project. Well, not even a side project. It was just a solo thing. Like I mentioned to you, like I was playing in a lot of bands. I mean, I've been playing music since I was probably 15 years old. And I had a slew of different bands, but none of them amounted to too much. I had, like I said, I did some tours, and I played with some bigger bands, like big in our world. And I had a really good time with that. I moved to California, and I was playing in several different bands out there, but it was just sort of I had a kind of a well, it was a lot of stuff. I when I was younger, I had some issues with drugs, and it took me a while to get that out of my system. I was still playing music the entire time, but it definitely like stole away my focus. But I relied heavily on like being in bands, and was hoping that like everything that I was doing musically like was shared amongst like other people. But I was realizing for whatever reason, like that just wasn't happening for me. And I ended up getting kind of like jaded to like the whole music thing for a little while. I just felt like I was just writing. I've been writing all these songs for years. A lot of them I've forgotten. I don't even like remember like what they were. And even like some of them were probably crap, some of them were probably good, whatever. But they're all gone. And like I hit this like 1 year period where I just didn't play music at all. I was just so sick and tired of it. And like I was working a job out in California. It was paying a lot of money, and it was taking up 10 hours a day of my time. And I just sort of like, I'd come home and play my guitar, but like I had no ambition to play live anymore or have bands anymore. And then, like I said, I went to Europe, and when I came back from Europe, I made the decision that I was going to move to Sweden. And it was just like, it was kind of like a bucket list thing for me. I was just like, I just want to do an album. Like I wanted to have something physical, like that like had my name on it. Like I did the artwork for it, played the instruments on, because I'd accumulated like all these skills and like all this knowledge of like how to do all this stuff. And I never had the drive or like the wherewithal to like, push it forward or whatever. So I just did that first Quell thing, that little 4-song EP thing. And I just kind of thought nothing of it. And then it was just something fun to do, so I could just get it kind of out of my system. And I didn't really have any ambition to follow through with it any further. But then when I got here to Sweden, I made friends with this guy, Patrick, who's a sound engineer. And he liked it. We already were friends, but he liked the idea of Quell, and he'd been doing a lot of, I don't know. Well, I know like sound engineers, like to make ends meet, you have to do a lot of bullshit music you're not really interested in.
Oh, absolutely, man. 90% of the stuff you at work would do is probably not something you like, really.
Right. And he's a post-punk guy, but he's also like, he's also like, I don't even know what you would call this genre of music, but like stuff like Dillinger or like Young and in the Way, like that kind of music. Like he Converge, he really liked that kind of extreme music as well. And he was like really wanting to like work on a project where he could do something like that. And so I just showed up, and he was like, well, why don't you just come over and like do a Quell, that you do some more Quell stuff. So that's what ended up being Turning the Sun to Stone, was like that project. And that was just me going over to his place. And then like, I had, like I said, like I was still playing guitar. I just wasn't really doing anything with anything. And so I had all these riffs together, and it was kind of like just a fun thing. Again, like I didn't really like take it too seriously. I wrote like all those songs on that Turning the Sun to Stone like within like 2 months. And it was just, but in that 2 months, we weren't playing music every day. It was like I'd go over like one day, 1 week, do like 2 songs, pick up his bass. I didn't even have a bass guitar, so I'd like pick up his bass and like just do the bass real quick. And then he would work on the programming and the drums and stuff. And then we went to the studio and did the vocals. And then like I said, like, so that's what Turning the Sun to Stone was. And it was around that same time as when I started like reaching out to like, because COVID had happened. I moved here right before COVID happened.
Oh wow, damn.
And yeah, I was here like December 2018, and wow. Then everything went to hell in March. And so I was kind of feeling like alone here, like I didn't have too many friends, and I started listening to a lot of podcasts, yours, Jackie's, Vinny Paz from Dead and stuff. Totally. And then I just thought, well, what's stopping me from like just talking to you guys, and I just started like reaching out to people, and that's how I ended up becoming friends with you and friends with Jackie and even Vinny Paz and like Jeff from Done Deal, like the Philly guys and stuff like that. And it was through them that I started getting like maybe some confidence that like maybe Quell is like, maybe I should be doing more with it or whatever. Maybe this isn't, it wasn't like any intention to have, but like maybe this should be my intention to have, like, to work on this kind of stuff. And so this newest one's like was like a serious attempt unlike the other. I shouldn't say that other ones weren't serious attempts, because I don't want to take away from anybody who likes the music. I really love what I did with the other albums, but this is like the first time where it was my actual intention to write songs and to focus on songwriting and really put in some serious effort into it. And that's the one that I sent you through email, the Kvlt's Dead album.
Well, thank you. I listened to the whole album twice yesterday, and
Really,
oh yeah, dude, I thought it was great, and I agree that it's a huge step forward, I think, in the songwriting. As opposed, not that the other material wasn't good, but this was like it felt more focused to me, and there was more intention behind creating the music. You know what I'm trying to say?
yeah, I do. I mean, on my own end, like, one of the things I focused on more was like layering. I didn't do like a lot of layering on the last one. Like this one, I thought about layering stuff and like having not dual guitars. There are some dual guitars, but like just having, like more colors to the music, and the subject matter was like, I did want to talk about this, but I had such a fun time talking with you like about other stuff that I didn't want to bring it up, but I will bring it up because you recently like shared some stuff too, and like I lost my father on the 25th of October, and like he was like a good friend of mine. Like, I mean, he was my dad, of course, but like beyond that, like he was a really good friend. And originally, like all the lyrics and kind of direction I was going with, like the music was slightly different than what it became. And but after he died, of course, things changed in my life, and my world got kind of like turned upside down. So like I ended up changing a lot of like the songs, like meanings and stuff like that. And like that song "Grief" that's at the end of the album, like that's pretty much like I wrote those lyrics like the morning I found out from my brother that he had passed. And it's just kind of like a way for me to it was cathartic in a way, like how you mentioned, I was listening to that episode that you spoke of, some loss in your personal life as well.
Yeah.
And I know that like you legit mean like when you're talking about like that you weren't pandering to anybody by bringing it up. And I feel like sometimes we do feel that way, like when we bring up things that we feel like we're pandering or something. And but it was just like a cathartic process, for me to get through like all this. And there's a lot of anger on that album, on this album. There's a lot of anger on this album, and I kind of feel bad about it in a way, because like, I mean, I do black metal music and it's supposed to be aggressive and it's supposed to be angry, but I don't necessarily want like to portray myself in like a way that like I'm not, because I am a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of guy, and I do like intense music and extreme music, but I don't want to like make people feel bad. But I hope maybe out of all of this, if they do listen to the lyrics and if they do enjoy it, that maybe like they can find something in the words themselves that like maybe helps them like grieve through it, because that's all I was just trying to do. So a lot of the subject matter, if not all of the subject matter, minus like the title track, is about that sort of a thing.
Well, I think. Well, first of all, my condolences, man. I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your dad.
Thank you.
But secondly, our culture has a very hard time with grief. In general. I mean, everyone wants you just to pull. Oh yeah, okay, great. I'm sorry. And then they kind of like well, they don't want to talk about it, or you're supposed to take a couple days off from work and come back and everything's cool and no one's going to ask you how you're feeling, or even family members are going to ignore the fact that you just went through some huge loss. And it's like, well, another irony is like, guys like me and you, guys who are involved in extreme music, who do this aggressive style, that we're the ones who are trying to express ourselves. And I think that a lot of people out there are, I mean, dude, in this whole pandemic, I know many, many people who have lost people, and they just, They don't, it's like, I wonder if they have the proper outlets to deal with it, and that's the talking about it, even if it's a one-way conversation like this, where you're listening, someone's listening to it. I think it's really important,
Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, it's great that you're doing it. I think it's great that you're, sharing that type of thing with people, I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a good thing too. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's societal or if it's like our society, but like, you're an East Coast person as well, and in the East Coast of the U.S., a lot. And I can say this because I did see this kind of dichotomy, like when I lived in California, is that like on the East Coast, like it's a lot more of a hard knock kind of school of living versus like and so you don't really talk about things like suicide or mental health or grieving or anything like that. It's like, pick yourself up, pull your britches up, get over it. Everyone dies, everyone suffers, life's hard. Stop whining about it, and then, in a lot of ways, I unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, I inherited a lot of that, into myself, but it more or less like manifested in more like guilt than anything else. Like,
Sure.
like not being able to like not feeling like it's okay to talk about stuff, or whatever. But being an emotional or being a person that's in touch with his emotions, it never really went away, and I know it's uncomfortable to talk about, but I really don't know any other way how to deal with this kind of stuff unless to talk about it. Because I mean, if I don't talk about it, like it always ends up like just manifesting in self-destruction, and I don't want to go down that road ever again, so in a lot of ways, like the anger that I scream about in Quell or to a friend or something like that, like it's not really anger. It's more like just like a way of working out emotions that I more or less like have a difficulty like expressing or something like that, maybe, or just more along the lines of like just trying to make sense of a chaotic situation.
I don't know how people got away from that too. I mean, it's like, if you think about it, like, older cultures have they have all these rituals that they do with grief, and even in my own family, it's like I'm my background is Italian American, Irish American, and like, the Italian side of my family are like, the old ladies crying, jumping, getting ready to jump in the grave. You know what I mean? They're very emotional about this stuff. But like, the somehow that has somehow dissipated, and people just aren't really, I don't know. They just, it's like they don't want to
being
talk
a
about
man. Somehow being a man means like you have to like be hard and calloused. You're looked, at least like for the majority of my upbringing, like being a man didn't mean being sensitive. Like being sensitive was a trait of weakness,
Sure.
So
Yeah.
even if you were suffering, like you had to be hard, and like, as I get older, I realize that how silly that is, because I respect people who are emotional, and I respect people who are honest and show their vulnerable side. I think it takes a lot more strength in a lot of ways to be more vulnerable than it does to be tough, because as an emotional person and as somebody who's gone through different strifes in life, like I can see right through that facade very, very easily. Like it's very obvious that most quote unquote hard people are just as vulnerable and upset as anybody else is, but they just are either too afraid or they don't know how, to speak about certain things. And, and I'm guilty of the same thing too. I don't always know how to express myself or quote unquote like love myself. I struggle with these things all the time. I'm no better or any worse than anybody else in this world. It's just part of life, and eventually you're going to lose somebody you care about, and it's going to suck. It's going to suck really bad. And there isn't any like real book that you can read that's going to make it all better, because your thing is unique to you. You know, that relationship you have with that person is unique to you. You know, and no matter how many times someone says like whatever they say, it doesn't necessarily make it any better. It makes it easier, and it's nice to have friends that like are supportive and stuff. But at the end of the day, like, I hate to tell anybody this who's listening to this, you know, and feeling sad, but you're gonna have to go through the process, and it's rough. You know,
Yeah.
but I wish everybody the best. I really do. I wish everybody the best, and I hope at the very least you know that you're not alone, and there are a lot of people in this world that go through the same thing, you know, and it just sucks, you know. But I don't have any quit, you know, like I don't, you know, regardless if you know, if I was just an armless, legless like stump laying in the bed, I still wouldn't want to off myself, you know. So I just, you know, unfortunately or fortunately, I have to continue going through this world and try to do my best, you know. And but it, you know, it's nice to be able to talk about it. And I hope, you know, I know you've been doing some of this yourself, dealing with this grief process, and I hope you have some people you can talk to as well, you know, because it does make it a little bit easier. Doesn't fix anything, and it'll never fix it, but hopefully it makes it a little bit easier on you.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one in my family that I can talk to because they're just like these, you know. But I have a lot of good friends have come across, you know, and they've definitely helped me through this whole thing. And I guess that's the whole point of talking about it on the podcast, was like just to, you know, like you said too. I wasn't trying to like, you know, look how sensitive Mike is, you know, like there's no. We have a primarily male dominated audience on this podcast, so I don't even think any women are there to be like, "Oh, Mike, you're so sensitive," you know, or whatever. But I just want to, you know, I just didn't want it to be false. I wanted it to be something that to come across like from my end of like, okay, this is like a release and like a therapeutic thing, but also to tell a story about someone going through a horrible experience and still finding a way to go on, I guess. Cause like, you know, man, when you're in the grips of it in those first few days and you've never hurt like you've hurt during that period and you don't know how you're going to get out of it, you know, it's like, it's encouraging to see someone who felt similarly and to see that they somehow were able to move past all of it and move forward in life and keep it together, you know, cause they're like, you know, similar. I mean, you and I like similar things, man. Like, but the person I lost wasn't a parent, but it was someone that was equally as close, maybe closer than my parents. And, you know, to have that.
I got that impression. Like, I mean, and I understand that too, you know, and sometimes you are more intimate with a stranger, like quote unquote stranger, than you are with your own family. Yeah.
And, you know, there are moments, real dark moments during that period where you're just like, you know, why do I get to go on, you know, and she doesn't, you know, and that's these like existential like questions get asked. And, but you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, man. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. You sort of embrace this like sort of feeling and this emotion because you can't not feel it, you know?
Yeah. You know, and this sounds really like fucking like I if there's anything I dislike more in the English language, it's like cliche sayings, but I can't avoid them sometimes. And if there is something to be said about like hurting so bad because someone's not in your life anymore, because if they didn't really matter to you, like you wouldn't feel that way. And like, so there is like in some sick, twisted way, there is like a beauty to that realization. I mean, it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't make anything better, but there's a lot of people in this world I've met, and to no fault of their own, I wouldn't shed a tear over if they passed. You know, it's just that we're not that close, or they never left that kind of impression on me and stuff. And so I do think that like there is some validity in that suffering, and there is some like you know, I don't know, like, do you know what I'm trying to say? I don't know if I'm.
I do, you know, and you know, there's always something to gain from anything that's hard that you've gone through in life. You know what I mean? And it's like, you know, anyone who hasn't dealt with a trauma or like, you know, struggled doesn't understand that, you know, and to deal with these things, and you know, you can change in a positive way after going through something terrible, you know, and difficult and an obstacle and overcoming that obstacle. And, you know, and even this, where it's just like, you just feel so ripped apart, you know, but you can put it back together again. And hopefully you're, you know, try to be in a better place later, you know, and that's kind of like the continuing story about that, you know. And I constantly see people talking about deaths in their family and losses of loved ones, you know, COVID related or not COVID related. And it just seems like lately a lot of people have been passing, man. And every time I read about that, I think about the people they left behind and how hard it is to even comprehend something like that. And, you know, and that's like, you know, maybe that's where my compassion is now these days of, you know, the like loss, dealing with loss, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, if you can do anything, you know, I mean, of course, you know, we have to work on ourselves before we can be useful for anybody else, you know. But if our experience can teach us anything, I hope it's that we get stronger from this sort of a thing, and that, you know, we can help other people, you know, down the line that also matter to us, you know, that go through the similar shit, you know, because it is rough, you know, like unfortunately, because of my past and with drugs and stuff like that, like I've lost people in my life. And I was like, when I was 24, I found a friend dead in his apartment, and you know, and all this death stuff has been around me for quite a long time, and it's been rough. But losing my dad was like the first time like losing parents, and I realized like I hadn't really processed any of this death stuff that had come in like to my life throughout my years on this earth, and this was like the first time where it really sank in like heavy. And you know, I'm just trying to, you know, at the moment, like just trying to get through it. But one of the things that I guess I'm in a sick way grateful for is that I have been able to have these experiences, both negative and positive, because you know, I can talk about it. Like I'm talking about it right now on this podcast with you, and I talk about it in private with some of my friends, and it does seem like it's a valid experience that deserves being spoken about. And I hope that if I ever do speak about it with somebody, you know, that I can maybe through my experience I can help somebody else, you know. That's the only real good I can see out of it, other than I you know, the journey of life and maturing past it. Of course that's important too, but like if there's any good to come out of it, is it is that I hope that perhaps when somebody comes my way one day that's going through a similar grief, that I can not just speak like generatives to them, but I can actually speak from experience to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna have to listen more closely to the lyrics on the record, man. That's if this is like subject matter, you know, for sure.
Yeah, I have them all written down. I can just send you that via email.
Yeah, send it over, man. I'd be happy to read it.
I will.
Yeah. So with the record being out, like how can people, where do people go to get their hands on this stuff?
Quell, that's QUELL.bandcamp.com. That's like how you can support me through like buying the album or like buying the physical CD, which I hope by the time this airs will be out. But in Sweden, they take a lot of days off during the holidays, and so I haven't been able to get the proof back. So I'm still waiting on the proof. But it should be a smooth process after that. So it more or less will be out. I'm gonna also put it on every single, like I have a DistroKid account, so everything just gets uploaded onto all the streaming platforms. So if you don't have the money to pay for it, like I totally get it. And at the end of the day, like I'm just happy if you listen. So, you know, if you want to just listen to it on YouTube, or if you want to listen to it on Spotify, just look up Quell, QUELL, ELL, and there's like an electronic band on there called the same name. So just find the black metal guy instead of the the techno electronic band that's on there. But yeah, I mean, people can stream it. If they follow me on Instagram, it's the same thing. It's Quell the Band at Instagram, and it's Quell the Band on Facebook, and I'll post all the links to everything. You know, I do all this independently, so it's like I don't really think about getting anything back monetarily. So, you know, I'm just happy if people like it and want to listen to it, and, you know, share it with your friends.
But I encourage everyone out there to try to pay for it, man. Like, this is like,
yeah, if they could, that'd be great. You know, at the end of the day, like, I just, you know, try to, like, I've said this on Jackie's podcast too. You know, when I sell these albums, just so everyone knows, when I sell these albums, I just upscale the price of them so I can make my money back of what it cost me, and I can pay for the shipping. I don't make a buck on anything, and I don't want to.
Yeah, you should though. I would like you to make money on it, and also just anyone out there, you know, when you're able to go out and party, you know, it's like you get a couple 2-3 vodka crans, you know, you're going to spend more on that alcohol than you're going to spend on this record. Or if you're going to go to Starbucks and get your fucking latte with like the caramel macchiato, you're going to spend money on that instead of buying this fucking record. So buy the record.
I'll say you're not wrong. You'll get more replay value out of the record than you will out of the vodka cranberry. You know, yeah, so you know, yeah.
And I appreciate that. I encourage everyone to go out, dude. Let's be real, man. You know, it's like, oh man, you know, I don't know, man, $9 or whatever. I'm like, come on, bro. It's like, you can go out and get an IPA for like and spend $8 at a bar. You know what I mean? So go for
sure. Yeah.
And so as far as social media accounts and all that, like where to, you know, give us all that information too.
Yeah, like I said, it's Quell the Band on Instagram. It's Quell the Band on Facebook. It's quell.bandcamp.com on Bandcamp, of course. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have. You can email me directly at quelltheband at gmail.com if you want to discuss any of these sort of things, like, you know, buying an album or maybe giving me a record deal or something like that.
Yeah, I want to underscore the fact that you're independent and that there is no label right now that's helping you with any of this stuff. And there's like a whole, like, you know, a lot of these bands Jackie's talked about and had as guests on Into the Necrosphere. And I know you, and I know Cheyenne from Trivax. I've had him on as a guest too. And you guys are fucking great bands. And it's just, maybe it's the time, you know, I don't know. I don't know how many labels might not be signing bands right this minute because of, you know, the uncertainty of the pandemic, but it blows my mind that you guys aren't on Season of Mist or some, you know, good label, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I unfortunately, I'm not very well versed in that world, and I'm sure there's reasons for it. You know, I mean, I don't have a lot of followers. You know, I have a few hundred followers, and whereas like Behemoth has a few tens of thousands of followers and stuff like that. So I'm sure at the end of the day, like, you know, they have a business to run, and there's no hard feelings. You know, it doesn't stop me, you know, from putting out music, and it won't stop me. I'll continue doing this, you know, because I like doing it, and I enjoy being able to meet people like you, or even just people who hit me up on Instagram, you know, just say, hey, you know, excited about the new release, and, you know, keeping it up and stuff like that. And like, it's really nice, you know, and I enjoy the community that we're all a part of, you know. It's a very supportive community, and whether or not we get any kind of recognition from any kind of a record label isn't gonna really change any of that for me. You know, I'll still champion underground bands, and I'll still, you know, talk about how much I love the new Tomb album too. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, you know, I'm still going to keep on keeping on, you know.
Now, is there any apparatus for you to perform live? Like, do you have any desire to, or would you have guys that would, you know, perform this stuff with you in a live setting?
I would like to play live again. I loved playing live. I've played live a lot, you know, and I do miss it quite a bit, but I do not have anybody at the moment that I'm working with. You know, if I could meet some people to do that sort of a thing, I absolutely would do that, 100%. But at the moment, no.
To me, the music would, when I listen to it, like, there's some projects out there that involve this one person, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is like, some kind of thing that is the only setting really that makes sense is to listen to it at home. But Quell has like a very live band sort of vibe to it, and that's why I was asking that question.
I'm a big advocate of being able to play whatever you write live. I have a lot of albums I listen to that I'm big fans of that I know that I'll never get to see those songs live because it's just impossible, But me personally, I want to be able to do whatever I write. I want it to be able to be played live. So it is translatable. There's a couple small effects here and there, just for atmospheric purposes, but none of the music stuff is all of the music stuff is recreatable very easily. They're not. They might sound complicated riffs, but they're not. They're more complicated chords and strumming patterns than anything else. Like if I ever did playthroughs, I think people would be kind of surprised at how I was able to accomplish certain sounds, because a lot of those sounds are very simple stuff. It's just how you play it and where you're holding the strings on the neck, But it's all pretty rudimentary stuff.
You should get different guys in every city, so you can be like Chuck Berry, just show up with a guitar.
I had this concept one time, legit. I'm so funny you brought this up. I had a concept one time. If anyone's listening to this, go ahead and just do it, because I think it would be amazing. If you had a band, but the band, if you had a band that had songs, but every city it was a different lineup, and you just sent the music to different people, and so if you did a quote unquote tour, in Cleveland tonight, it's just the Cleveland version of that band, and then in DC tomorrow, it's the DC version of that band. So there's no real front man, there's no real bass player. It's just just musicians scattered over the world. Would be the easiest tour in the world, right? You'd just be you're gigging, you're not even touring, right? I don't know how that would work out monetarily, but I always thought that would be a cool concept if someone could pull that off.
Well, maybe you could be the guy to start that trend,
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I thank you, Evan. And it's New Year's Eve when we're recording this, man. So it's actually it's legit New Year's Eve where you're at. So you're gonna rage tonight or what?
We got some torches that we're gonna light and just run around the city and scare all the people with. No, not really. I think we're gonna just take it easy tonight. No, nothing crazy. Just make some dinner, listen to some music, hang out. Nothing crazy.
Yeah, you gotta be safe.
What about you? You gonna do anything crazy tonight?
No,
do you have any?
No, I got I just me and my cat here by ourselves, and I have I just got the all the haunts be ours, the folk horror compendium that Severin put out. It just showed up yesterday. So I'm gonna watch probably as much as I can before I fall asleep, and most likely it'll be before midnight. So
don't you hate folk horror?
No, I don't like the term folk horror.
Oh, that's what it is, right?
Yeah, but I love I mean, I wasn't a fan of Midsummer, honestly, but no. And there's a lot of pretenders of, I don't want to come off like an asshole either, but it's because it became a thing. There's a lot of people who are okay, we're going to make a folk horror movie, but they don't. It's just a surface kind of vibe, they're not really into it, and
what's the collection like? Is it Lair of the White Worm, that kind of stuff, or
it's real? A lot of it's really obscure stuff that I haven't seen. Some of the stuff I've seen already, but some of it's like Dark Waters. I've seen A Field in England, the Ben Wheatley movies.
Yeah.
Then there's a bunch of other stuff like Il Demonio, which I haven't seen. There was a movie I watched last night called Eyes of Fire, which is really interesting. And then there's a couple of documentaries. There's extended cuts of certain films. There's a book. There's a reading of the Arthur Machen poem. Not poem, it's a short story, The White People. And with a musical accompaniment. It's
oh shit!
Fucking days of entertainment.
Yeah. I was gonna say you got a full day ahead of you.
Yeah. So I'm really, I started getting into it last night, and I'm going to continue. I woke up actually earlier this morning so I can continue watching it. So but that's going to be my day probably.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I'd love to do this again. Like, just to shoot the shit. It was
Yeah,
really
man.
fun talking to you. I liked
Hell
it a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah, pick a subject, man. We'll do a special on something.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be great. And again, thanks for opening up and giving me a chance to talk to you too. It was, and I hope this fucking next year is better than this year. And and
Well, that's been like the whole thing, man. It's like, that's the reason why I feel like I exist, is to do music and travel and play gigs and stuff, and I've been able to do that, really consistently for like almost 2 years.
Well, don't give up.
Oh no,
yeah,
never.
Just keep struggling, keep fighting the good fight, as they say.
Well, once again, thanks, Evan, and thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week.